That jar on the counter holds a complete meal. Meat, rice, vegetables, everything in one sealed glass jar. Open it, reheat it, eat it. Done. No refrigeration to store it, no modern equipment to make it. This is the Amish-style survival jar that Depression-era families used to keep themselves fed when nothing else was reliable. And today, I'm going to show you exactly how to make it. It is the 1930s. The Great Depression is at its worst. Buying fresh meat every few days is not an option for most families. So they did something practical. They cooked pork with rice and vegetables, packed it into glass jars, sealed them, and processed them in boiling water. The result was a complete, calorie-dense meal that sat on a cellar shelf and did not need a fridge. Fat plus rice plus protein. That combination is exactly what people needed during hard times. Filling, efficient, and genuinely sustaining. Today, I am going to walk you through this method step by step, exactly the way it was done. Here is everything you need for 2 jars. 800 grams to 1 kilogram of fatty pork, neck or shoulder. 1 onion, 1 to 2 carrots, 200 to 250 grams of uncooked rice, 2 to 3 tablespoons of salt, 1 teaspoon of vinegar per jar, water. That is it. A handful of ingredients that cost almost nothing and produce 2 complete meals. Before anything else, look at your pork. You need a fatty cut, neck or shoulder. Here is why. The fat is not just flavor. It is what keeps the meat tender through the long processing time and what makes this jar genuinely filling as a survival meal. A lean cut will turn dry and tough. Use a fatty cut. This is a traditional method inspired by how people preserve food in hard times. For long-term food storage, proper pressure canning is the recommended safe approach. We will come back to that. Step 1. Prep the ingredients. Cut the pork into chunks, not too small, roughly bite-sized pieces that will sit well in the jar. Finally, chop the onion and the carrots. Then rinse the rice under cold water until the water runs completely clear. This is important. Rinsing removes the excess starch from the surface of the rice, because that starch, if left on, makes the rice stick together into a dense block during processing. Rinse until the water is clear. One more thing before moving on. Do not cook the rice beforehand. It goes raw. Raw rice absorbs the liquid released by the meat during processing. It cooks inside the sealed jar. That is exactly what gives this recipe its texture. Pre-cooked rice turns to mush. Raw rice absorbs the juices and cooks through properly. Raw only. Step 2. Sear the meat. This is the most important step in the prep. Do not skip it. Heat a pan on high heat. Sear the pork hard for 10 to 15 minutes until it is golden brown all over. Add the salt at this stage, slightly more than you normally would. Here is why the searing matters. It builds a crust on the outside of each piece. That crust locks in flavor and prevents the meat from becoming mushy during the long processing time. Unseared meat goes soft and falls apart. Seared meat holds its structure and tastes like something worth eating. Once the meat is golden, add the chopped onion and cook briefly until it softens. Then add the carrots and cook for another 10 minutes. Watch this as it cooks. The pan should smell extraordinary. That caramelized crust on the pork and the sweetness of the onion cooking down together is the foundation of what this jar is going to taste like. 10 to 15 minutes of hard searing, not a quick brown, hard searing. That step is the difference between a jar that tastes like a real meal and one that tastes like it was just boiled. Quick question while the meat is finishing up. Have you ever thought seriously about how your household would eat if the supply chain went down for even a few weeks? Not in a dramatic way, just practically. What would you actually turn to? Drop it in the comments. I genuinely want to know. Step 3. Layer the jars. This is the critical stage. The layering matters. Start with a layer of rice at the bottom, about 2 centimeters deep. Then a layer of the seared meat and vegetables on top. Then rice again. Then meat again. Keep alternating layers until the jar is nearly full, but stop before the top. Leave a headspace of 2 to 3 centimeters between the contents and the rim. Here is why that space is essential. Rice expands as it absorbs liquid during processing. Overfill the jar and that expanding rice has nowhere to go. The pressure builds and the jar cracks. The headspace is not optional. Add 1 teaspoon of vinegar to each jar. Add a small amount of water if the contents look dry. Then wipe the rim of each jar thoroughly clean. Any residue on the rim prevents a proper seal. Use a cloth dampened with vinegar for the final wipe. Seal the lids tightly. Layer it correctly. Rice, meat, rice, meat. Always leave the headspace. Always wipe the rim clean. These three things determine whether the jar seals properly. Step 4. Process the jars. Now the most important step of all. Place the sealed jars in a large pot. Cover them completely with water. Bring to a gentle boil. Hold that gentle boil for at least 4 hours. Not 2 hours, not 3, 4. Here's what is happening inside those jars during that time. The heat builds inside the sealed glass. The raw rice absorbs the juices from the meat. Everything cooks together in its own sealed environment. The flavors merge. The fat melts through the rice. By the 4-hour mark, what was raw and separate is now a unified, complete meal. Keep the water level up throughout. Top it up with hot water if it drops below the level of the jars. After 4 hours, turn off the heat. Leave the jars in the water to cool slowly. Do not remove them immediately. Rapid temperature change can crack the glass. Once cool, check every single jar. The lid must be pulled inward, concave, completely sealed with no flex when pressed. If a lid flexes or pops under pressure, that jar has not sealed. Refrigerate it and use it within a few days. 4 hours minimum. Every jar must be fully sealed before storage. A lid that flexes means the seal failed. That jar does not go on the shelf. This is the traditional method, and it produces something genuinely useful. But here's what you need to know. Meat and rice are low-acid foods. Low-acid foods processed only in boiling water carry a risk of botulism if something goes wrong with the seal. The safest approach for long-term storage of meat-based jars is a pressure canner, which reaches the higher temperatures needed to eliminate that risk completely. If you are planning to store these jars for months rather than weeks, pressure canning is the method to look into. What we are making here is a traditional, survival-inspired method, rooted in how people actually preserved food in hard times. Treat it that way. Step 5. Store. Store only the jars with a proper vacuum seal in a cool, dark, dry place. No fridge needed for sealed jars. That is the point of the whole method. Check the seal on any jar before opening it. The lid should still be pulled inward. If a lid has popped up or flexes when pressed, discard it without tasting. Let me put into words what is sitting on that shelf. 2 complete meals: meat, rice, and vegetables. Protein, carbohydrate, and fat in 1 jar. No prep needed to eat. Just open, reheat, and serve. That is what made this method so valuable during the Depression years. It was not just preserved food. It was a complete calorie-dense meal that required nothing to make it ready except heat. Modern MREs are designed around exactly the same idea. Compact, complete, shelf-stable meals that do not need refrigeration. The difference is that this version costs a fraction of the price and uses nothing that is not already in your kitchen. I am curious about something. Do you think methods like this have a place in modern households, beyond just the historical interest? Or is this purely about the history for you? Let me know in the comments. When it is time to use it, open the jar. Tip the contents into a pan and reheat gently over medium heat, stirring to break everything up. Watch this. The rice that cooked inside the jar during processing has absorbed all the pork fat and juices. It does not come out as separate grains. It comes out as something richer than that. A cohesive, deeply flavored meal that smells like it has been cooking for hours. Add a little hot water if the consistency needs loosening. Season to taste. Serve it as it is. That is a complete meal from a jar that has been sitting on a shelf. That is the whole point. The families who made jars like these in the 1930s were not interested in survival skills as a concept. They were interested in eating next week. What strikes me about this recipe is how practical the thinking behind it was. Fatty pork and rice. 2 cheap, calorie-dense ingredients that fill a jar and a stomach in equal measure. That logic has not dated at all. A jar of complete meals on a shelf. No electricity needed to keep it there. If you want to keep learning techniques like this, make sure to subscribe.